and welcome to the next of our In Conversation series. Delighted to be here this afternoon with Nikki and Anani, and we will be discussing everything to do with common generational divides, family business and family offices, and how to overcome them, with a focus specifically on next gen females as well. So I'm just going to invite, here we go. Now I still haven't quite cracked this, so bear with me. Oh, hang on. Give us 2 seconds. But I'm really excited about this conversation as well. So yeah, could not wait for us to share.
Hi,
Insight.
how are you?
Good afternoon.
How are you
Very
doing?
good. I am good, thank you. It's slightly sunny in London today for a change, which makes a huge
Oh, that's
difference.
nice. That's lovely. It's been sunny here for today at least. We've had a spate of a lot of rain.
Yeah.
So yeah, the sun is welcome.
Well, I mean, same over here. Well, thank you so much for joining me this afternoon. I'll give a little bit of background. So Nikki is an entrepreneur, a speaker, a succession specialist. She helps her clients to bridge the gap between the senior and younger generations. She's got over a decade of family business expertise in Nigeria and a second generation family business owner and leader herself. She's also the podcast runner of Connected Generation, which I completely encourage all of you to go and listen to get some insights on leadership, next gen wealth, all of her tips and tricks. And she's got some amazing people that she speaks to as well. But again, today we're going to be discussing common generation divides, family business and family offices, and how to overcome them, with the focus on female next gens, because they are coming and it's amazing and I'm loving this transition. But tell me in a nutshell, what do you do, how do you do it, how have you got here?
Maybe I'll start with how I got here, and then I'll answer what I do and how I do it. How did I get here? I'm a second gen business owner. My father started off our family business the year I was born. So business has always been in my life, all my life, but at some point it became at the forefront of my life. You can probably hear I spent a lot of time in the UK. So from age 9, I was in the UK. And after university, I studied economics at UCL. I worked in corporate in Deloitte for a few years, but I found it quite hollow. I found it, whilst it was really great and I really loved the people, I just felt like there was a part of me that was missing, and it was what really truly lit me up. So I decided to come to Nigeria because my father had stayed in Lagos, Nigeria the whole time whilst we were in the UK, and decided to start working alongside him to really discover what my true passion was. And there it was, entrepreneurship. Absolutely fell in love with entrepreneurship. But around the time when I got married, we had a son, my mindset shifted from being lifetime oriented to being legacy oriented. And I became obsessed with concepts, things, people that would outlive their originators. And I also started to think about family businesses outliving the people that built them, like my father's, and even outliving myself and my kids. And that's when the obsession for family businesses really originated. And I trained up as an advisor. And so today I help business owners in building legacy businesses that will outlive them. And how I do that is really with the next generation. A lot of eyes are on the founder, naturally, because they have the checkbook, they have all the power. But everyone overlooks the next generation because apparently they don't have power. But I think it's not only immoral, it's actually uncommercial, if that's a word. Is that a word? Uncommercial? It's not commercial. Because they're the future. And that has been a lot of the biggest intergenerational wealth transfer is about to happen, right? Where we'll see the greatest wealth transfer the world has ever seen. And so next geners are going to be really influential and important. Essentially, I help to bridge the gap between the two generations in family firms so that founders and next geners can practice collective leadership. They can be better connected, because I have a concept in theory that family enterprise, in order for them to be transformational, transformational not only to the families that own them, but also to the world and leave a lasting legacy, they have to be really connected. And so I help to bridge that between the
such an
two
important
generations.
topic as well.
Yeah.
And having that concept of, you know, purpose over profit
Yeah.
and long standing. And we want things to be, you know, ingrained into society more than it just being flipping businesses, I think.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah. So who are your main sort of clients? Are you based just with, you know, clients in Nigeria? Do you have international? Where are they?
So my main clients are next gens, female next gens,
Yeah.
who are anywhere. It's really interesting. Whilst there's a lot of, you know, nuances and cultures and what have you, geographies, really the issues that next gens face are unifying across the board. And it's usually one of wrestling with identity of wealth, particularly for women who, you know, tend to have a confidence gap when it comes to managing money and investing in money, but also tend to have an identity crisis when it comes to accepting that they're inheritors. Because we are conditioned as women to be the damsels in distress that marry our princes, that rescue us. We are supposed to marry up, right? But then when you're a potential inheritor, it's then, well, that's kind of threatening that dynamic. How does that work? So a lot of ladies want to dissociate themselves from that wealth. They see it as a source of shame, so that they can be attractive to a wider pool of suitors.
Yeah, and not threaten the men who should be, you
Not
know,
threatened.
the breadwinner. Yeah,
Exactly.
and I think that's a really important point that you made about sort of it's not just the cultural differences, but it's also these gender stereotypes that are coming into play as well, in terms of that is going to be changing across the different generations. You know, I think we're a little bit more forthcoming now with women understanding that they are entitled to wealth and it is something that is not just for men. But actually, I think this is where you probably are instrumental with orchestrating the families, is getting, you know, maybe the patriarchal figure in the family business to understand that his daughter is capable of managing a business.
And also the other way around as well, getting her to understand that she's capable.
Yeah.
So quite often she will have confidence issues because she's never really taken a flair for, her voice has not been, she's never had a voice in family wealth and family business matters. So she's never really thought it's for her. It's for her brothers, her uncles, her father. And it's really getting her to see that she has a voice. Actually, her voice is very important because the way women think and the way men think is completely different. I think families are endowed with natural diversity that other institutions do not necessarily have to have. A business does not have to have people of different ages or of different genders. They choose to. But a family would usually have different ages, different generations, and usually have both genders, right? And that diversity, that cognitive diversity, is a source of strength that we can leverage upon. We see that women are more purposeful in their entrepreneurship and in their investing. And the world really needs that right now with all the many social issues we're facing. So it's really getting families to appreciate that diversity that they have, move away from just having mere diversity because we're both coexisting but not necessarily co-creating, right?
Good phrase. Yeah.
We need to move from coexistence to co-creation through inclusivity, not just the natural diversity.
Yeah, and I imagine that's probably something that's been happening for generations and generations. Is that if there's the oldest son, he will be the one to get it, and then the girls just sort of almost get the payout from it, and they're very much out of control when it comes to maybe trust structures that they might have, business decisions. They don't have a seat at the table, or maybe
Yep,
they do, but they don't have a voice while they're sat there as well. So I think that's really, you don't want that tokenism. Like, yeah, we've got her here, but she's not engaged and she hasn't got
exactly,
an opinion.
exactly.
Oh,
I
I think
think,
that's very interesting.
yeah, we have to move from just being diverse to being inclusive,
Mm,
to also enabling and encouraging challenging. By that,
mm,
I mean, we need to have challenges that challenge our lines of thought. So we are truly being expanding the horizons of our thinking and able to get unique solutions. Because
mm,
the issues we're facing in our world as business owners and as investors is one of decision making. Our
mm,
world is so disruptive right now, and we have to become so adept at making decisions. So we need to be able to have a method, a mechanism through which we make quality decisions. And that can't happen where, like you said, I'll never forget when you were on the podcast and you said there's a difference between nodding and understanding.
mm.
There's also a difference between nodding and agreeing. We don't want nodding, we don't want agreeing, we actually want challenging. We want to challenge the status quo. We want to stretch the thinking of the status quo to make sure, is this still relevant for today? Will this be still relevant for tomorrow? So inclusivity is actually the bare minimum. We want a culture that accommodates and allows for disrupting the status quo.
Yeah, and I think I think this as well needs to be encouraged in businesses, not just private family businesses, but businesses as a whole. Instead of just doing their tick box exercise, they actually need to say, right, who are all these incredible people from different backgrounds, different experiences, and how can we utilize this to have the best effect later on? It's not just for us, but it's for the next generation. And I think there's a lot of consideration, and hopefully we've got a lot more feminine energy coming into the leadership roles as well, which will help to rebalance this very negative, ultra capitalist mentality that we've got now, where it's all profit, profit, profit. And I know that you're really very aware of mental impact that, and mental well-being, and people living harmoniously. And I think that this is where, yeah, we need more of you. Really.
Yeah, there needs to be it's a return, it's like conscious capitalism, isn't it? Right?
Yeah.
Where it's not this shameless pursuit of shareholder maximization to
Mm-hmm.
the detriment of people, to the detriment of planet,
Mm-hmm.
to the detriment of ethics or morality. Is really just, yeah, thinking more wide and thinking about the impact of our decisions on wider stakeholders.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm very excited to see, and I can feel it with the democratization of investment platforms, of knowledge, of access to knowledge in across the globe as well, and people understand now that investment is a form of action in
Mm.
terms of voting with your money, which is very exciting to see, and there's something that I'm sure that you help your clients to navigate as well. So just going back to when you're working with a family business, what are some of the tools that you use to help to manage this effectively? Because I'm sure it's not as easy as everybody sit down and let's get along. Humans are innately difficult sometimes.
Yeah, no, for sure. I focus on nurturing the three C's, which I say
Mm-hmm.
are clarity of vision, mission, clarity of values and purpose, collaboration, understanding that we are a team and we all participate in our team activities, and communicating both from the head and from the heart. And how we get to there, so that's the destination. How we get to there is really nurturing psychological safety, that place where we're able to not feel at risk if we make mistakes, we challenge the status quo, we submit our ideas. That place where we all feel, I belong here. My ideas belong here. My thoughts belong here. Whatever those may be, positive or negative. My emotions belong here, because in families, we all know it's emotions. It's a very emotional unit, right? Often in family enterprises, we'll be fighting about, who has control. But really what we're fighting about is the real underlying issue is I felt neglected by dad from a young age because he was never there for me. Or I felt he preferred Johnny to me. There's some sibling rivalry going on, right? So it's important to create that safety where we're able to talk about the intellectual as well as about the emotional. And then it's important also to have proximity. By that I mean emotional proximity, where we're able to understand the lens through which we each see life. Because the lens through which we see life is our reality, right? It's being able to develop deep empathy for one another and understand that we all have unique perspectives, unique priorities, unique preferences. And it's important to be able to be like actors. I was listening to a podcast with Jay Shetty, and Will Smith was on there. And he was talking about how being an actor has like transformed his life, because he has to be able to suspend all his judgment, his emotions, take off the way he sees things to fully embody a character, even when he completely disagrees with that character's like life beliefs and purpose, right? And I think it's the same in families. We have to be able to suspend and, put away all our emotions, presuppositions, to be able to take on how it is dad would see this, or how it is mom would see this, or my siblings would see this, to be able to then articulate ideas in a way that would be palatable to them. So yeah, in short, is developing the 3 Cs through the 3 Ps, having a strong sense of what is our purpose as a family, what's our collective purpose, not the purpose that's been dictated by a dominant figure, right? What's the collective purpose as a family at a given point in time? Because that will evolve with time as well, because the family members change, the world changes, right? It should be dynamic as opposed to static. Do we have safety where we feel, I belong here, my ideas belong here, and we're co-creating ideas where we're going through this share and discover, as opposed to being told, right? Being dictated at what the direction of the business, or what's going to happen with the investments and what have you. And then developing that proximity where we're able to see things the way our other family members do, so we're able to influence them more effectively through appropriate communication of our ideas.
That's, yeah, okay. I mean, that is totally logical. Now, my question is, when would somebody instruct you? Because sometimes when everything's fine, everything's fine. When the shit hits the fan, this is when you have to pull in the professionals, usually. And maybe some families have already got this, maybe underutilized mechanics of how they are currently structuring, but they might not see that as being a problem or an issue for the longevity of it. So how, I don't know if this is a real curveball question, but how would you try and approach that, or how do you kind of say, guys, there's a better way of doing this?
Usually I'm pulled in the room at point of crisis. I'm usually pulled in the room. Either a next gen wants to leave a family business, founders having really huge difficulty in seeing eye to eye with their family members. And it usually starts with me engaging with the next gen one-on-one, where I try to influence them to be an effective change catalyst in the family system. And the thing is, a family is a system. So as I'm changing, everyone else is responding, right? There's huge levels of interdependence between all the family members. So once you start working one-on-one with the next gen, it will have knock-on effects on the family. And then the next gen gains trust in the process, gains trust in themselves. and then, you know, usually advocates for you to come into the family system and facilitate conversations like a family meeting and what have you. So that's usually the trajectory, but it's not always linear. It's not always tidy. Families are not linear. Families are not tidy. Families don't have a blueprint, a prototype. They're unique. So every case, so to speak, is unique, and you have to approach it with a fresh pair of eyes.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I think that kind of also kind of overlap a little bit with what I'm doing in terms of helping women when they're navigating a divorce. You know, that's when it's crisis mode, and it's when the emotions are the highest. So when you're saying you've got to sort of, you know, remove that, that is usually the hardest thing to navigate from the outset, is washing the emotions out and saying, right, what are the facts here and how are we going to move forward? What does each person want? What are the outcomes? And then going in that way, I think, is probably what you experienced as well.
For sure. That's why I said it's important to make room for the intellectual and the emotional. One without the other, it would be completely ineffective. I think historically the industry has focused on family businesses are failing because they don't have succession plans. They don't do wealth planning. But they failed to acknowledge and see the importance of the emotional, where we are emotional beings who on occasion think, right, as opposed to rational beings who have emotion. It's important to realize that, yeah, these engagements can be, sometimes you start off very linear and it's all nice and tidy, and then you realize that one family member has deep-rooted emotional trauma to deal with. And that's stopping the succession process, because perhaps the patriarch or the matriarch have deep fear of death, anxiety about transitioning, and that has to be acknowledged and dealt with. So yeah, it's fusing the intellectual with the emotional.
Yeah, I mean, when are the royal family going to hire you? Because I feel that they need a lot of this at the moment. That's a
They
messy system
acknowledge
they've got
their
there.
emotions. I feel like they're quite robotic, but I might just be an
But I
outsider.
think, again, this is kind of why they've broken out as well, as they're like, hey, we're human.
Yep.
Nope.
If they would just acknowledge their humanity, I think.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people neglect that, and I think this is also where corporations become a machine rather than a human, you know, a human bubble. No, I love this, and I mean, I could just chat to you for hours and hours and hours. But let's get on to the female angle of it as well, and you know, the challenges specifically for women of wealth in terms of maybe leadership and perception. I know we touched on it a bit, but I don't know if you've got any examples or anything that you've seen.
So a lot of family businesses are historically have been in male-dominated industries because of patriarchy, right? So either originating in like the agriculture space or manufacturing, construction. So often female successors have a lot to wrestle with in terms of, is this sphere for me? Do I fit in here? Am I welcome here? So there's a lot of, you know, the gender confidence gap, where if they feel that they're not conditioned, they're not permitted to be in certain fields, that's greater levels of friction for them to build confidence. And then they start telling themselves they're not competent, this is not for me. So there's need to really assist female next gens with leadership, building their confidence, building their conviction, getting them to lead through that, like you said, their feminine energy. You don't have to necessarily mimic and imitate what you've seen. A lot of next gens don't have, their mothers were not necessarily active in the business. So there's no model to go by. And I really think that representation really matters. Modeling really matters. Affinity matters. They're dealing with issues that their male family members are not necessarily dealing with. Like I said, you know, for a man, wealth is empowerment, right? Whether he inherits it or he doesn't. But for a woman, it's not. A woman might internalize it as it's a, you know, it's a hindrance to her freedom. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done with mindset. There's also inheritors also tend to feel that they don't they're not, they didn't legitimately earn what they have.
Yeah.
Whether it's as a leadership position in the business or assets that they're inheriting. And there's a lot of mindset reorientation that needs to happen with that. Yeah, you didn't necessarily earn it with your blood, sweat, and tears, but you contributed towards its success in some way. Whether you're aware or not, whether you're aware or not, the family capital it goes beyond just financial capital. It's also intellectual capital, social capital, political capital, which all family members are depositing towards, whether they're aware or not, right?
Yeah, and I think that's a really important point that you're making there, is it's not just about the money. It's a much bigger ecosystem surrounding this concept of family. You know, it's not just what's on the balance sheets and what's going in and out. It's actually the impression that you're leaving within your community, or the services that you're providing, and the perception from your clients for the family business as well that you are impacting as well. And so it's that element of stewardship, which I think is what people need to kind of come to terms with, because again, it's very similar with some of my clients, but in terms of I don't deserve this. It's like, no, but you have got it, and so you need to manage your relationship with your wealth in order to make it healthy.
Yeah. And also stewardship is heavy. The pressure to steward is heavy. It can leave folks feeling stewardship anxiety. Will I be able to maintain all that mum and dad have built, or grandpa and granddad have built? Can I take it to the next level? So there's a lot of work that needs to be done in that regard as well.
Yeah, oh, definitely. Well, coming back to you, what are your visions and goals for the next 12 months, though? Because we're talking about longevity here. What are you doing personally?
Yeah, interestingly, I'm doing a lot of transforming. Firstly, I'm moving in about a week to the US. We've spoken about, so yeah, that's real. Changing one's geographic. I've been back in Nigeria now for 10 years, so I haven't moved in a long time. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to the newness, a new beginning, settling in the family, new connections, building on and nurturing old connections, new opportunity as the US, and we're moving to Texas, which, to be honest, only shut down for a very brief moment. They're back to the old normal. Looking forward to physical events again. A hug, a handshake, a coffee, right? As opposed to a Zoom, a Teams, a WebEx, which is the worst of all. God, WebEx is like everyone here is from WebEx. I'm just looking forward to a fresh start.
Yeah, I think it's going to be so exciting. I can't wait to see what you come up with next as well, and you're just going to grow and grow and grow. I'm very excited for you. So before I start, I will literally just keep chatting to you all afternoon. I'm sure everybody does that. But what would your 3 top tips be for maybe families who maybe have got a little niggles in the background, or what are the 3 top tips for like a smooth running family business?
I would say work on proximity, getting close to each other, when I'm not talking about geographical, but emotional. So seek to understand each other and develop deep empathy for one another. And that usually only comes about when you've listened and observed not just what they're saying verbally, but non-verbally. Non-verbal communication is like 80% of it, or something like that. It's more significant than the verbal communication. So I would say really listen to your family members, listening with your head, listening with your heart, to get a deep understanding of what are each of their aspirations, their fears, what are they seeing, thinking, doing, and saying those are usually cues to, you know, those aspirations and deep fears. Once you're able to get there, then it's a lot easier to be able to collaborate, because then you understand the perspective through which they see things, and are able to more effectively influence, we minimize a lot of conflict that way.
Yeah, and I think that's a really, really important point that you've made there, is crisis and conflict do not contribute to happy families, but they can be resolved through communication. And I think it is just, I mean, I'm fascinated by, like, the whole kind of conflict in families and how people just don't feel like they can say anything because of shame, or, you know, there's some sort of burden that they've maybe interpreted as well. It might not be the truth, but it's everybody's individual truth that needs to come to the table, which is really important, because again, what you said before about, you know, your eyes and your lens of reality are very different, because you know, your parents or the previous generations would have had very different experiences and expectations, and it's managing those and understanding it from both sides of the story, which is amazing.
And another thing I would just like to add is conflict is not always bad. You know, we want to run away from or minimize having destructive conflict, but there's such a thing as constructive conflict, because you don't want to be psychological safety is not the same as psychological comfort, right? So we don't want a situation where all family members don't want to rock the boat and start having difficult conversations. We just want to keep the peace, but there's so much suppressed emotion. We want there to be safety to express even difficult emotions or difficult conversations so we can address them. That's constructive as opposed to destructive.
Yes, and I think that is so important, because the weight of passive aggressive conflict management can be more detrimental later down the line, because then it will explode, and then things will definitely not go to plan.
Then it will be destructive.
Yes. Oh, this is amazing. Well, just finishing off then, I guess, where can we find you if anybody wants to get in touch with you to find out more about what you do, and if they're going through, you know, any of these scenarios, how you can help them?
I am on my website, www.firstnamelastname.com. Nike, Nike, Anani, ANANI.com. Also, obviously, here on Instagram, my handle's at Nike Anani. But on my website, everything is there. So links to my podcast, links to my different social media, my email address, and other resources as well. But yeah.
Brilliant, and I'll tag them all in when I post this up. Oh, but thank you so much. I always love speaking to you.
I love
just so calm, and, you know, I'm just like, you know, if I was ever in a conflict situation, I would want you by my side. So yeah. Well, thank you.
Thank you so much, Lottie. I love this.
Yeah, I love chatting to you, and I will catch up with you very soon and get all up.
Yeah.
And, yeah, I can't wait to see what you get on with in the States.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Right, well, thank you everybody for joining us this afternoon as well. And thank you for being here.
Awesome. Take care.
See you later. Bye.